Welcome to Brand Lover, honest, real, and lively conversations for flourishing entrepreneurs and budding business owners on a mission to cultivate a heartfelt brand that connects with their purpose-driven mission. My hope is that you walk away feeling inspired and refreshed with a weekly takeaway in your back pocket that you can apply to your life or business. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited to share this week's podcast guest with you. If you are a small business owner and are marketing online, which I believe every single business should be doing in this day and age, and you have never showed your face, if you are scared to share a selfie, or perhaps even join in a live Zoom session, or just are really feel sweaty palms and scared of showing up and actually having yourself personally associated with your brand, you are going to love this episode. I would love to introduce you to Toni Everard. She is a master trainer of NLP and hypnosis and a master coach who helps coaches, therapists, and practitioners master their coaching and communication skills, level up their business mindset, and step up as the leader in their field through NLP coaching certification trainings and her Elevate Business and Mindset Coaching program. Toni has worked with hundreds of coaches globally, delivering training both online and face-to-face since 2016, has been nominated and won multiple awards for creating results in business, and has her own podcast, The Coaching Circle. Welcome, Toni. I'm so excited to chat with you. But before we get too deep and meaningful, because I know that we will, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself on a personal level?
Sure. So thanks for having me, Rachel. You know, I've loved watching your business and everything that you do in that space over the last few years. So it's great having a chat. And yeah, about me, I guess I'm, big changes just happened for me. My daughter, who's 20, has just moved to Queensland to follow her dreams and has got herself a job on Hamilton Island. So that's very exciting, but a big change in life. And I think, that's one of the things that we get to know, that life, there's always changes. Just when you think, you know what life is, things shift.
Yep.
And, so I have a coaching and training business that I run mostly from home and hang out with my old pets. I've got a 14-year-old cat and dog. It's a bit like the retirement village here, and I've got to medicate them daily and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I just love, hanging out in the wellness space, and, I go to yoga and I go to the beach, and when I make time, I love doing creative things and painting and drawing and all those kinds of things. My partner works FIFO, so he's away. So luckily I'm an introvert and actually enjoy my own company and spending time at home by myself. But I'm an introvert that likes doing extroverted things. So I go to, quite a lot of networking things. I run a networking event, and I work with groups. So I train, coach and train groups of people, and I really love it. I really love working with people who want to create more in their life, who want to live a life that they love, and ultimately create a business, because I'm a big believer that business is part of our spiritual evolution. And you would know, Rachel, that there's nothing like business to bring up your own stuff, right? To work through.
Yeah. If you're watching the YouTube video, my eyes just popped. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah. And it's, that's the growth, that well, if we go back to where it started, I was in my late 30s. My daughter was a preteen, and I was working in a part-time accounts job, and I just wasn't living my best life. I was a bit of a hot mess, to be honest. I had terrible social anxiety, fear of public speaking, like real fear. I would go red and shake, and the last thing I wanted to do was hold a piece of paper in front of people, because they would see how much it was shaking. I would even think that people could see my legs shaking. It was just terrifying. And I used to drink too much wine to cover up a lot of this kind of stuff, right? And I had failed relationships behind me. You know, I had separated from my daughter's dad, and, you know, I just kind of got to a point where I went, you know, this isn't who I wanted to be when I grow up, you know, and I eventually realized that I was the common denominator in everything. That wasn't how I wanted it. And thought, well, I need to do something different. And so, you know, that was probably the start of my personal growth journey. And yeah,
Amazing.
there's been a lot of ups and downs since then.
As there are, but it's amazing that you had the wisdom, I guess, to recognize that common denominator, because that takes a lot of courage, I think, to really face up to the truth sometimes and to really examine ourselves. Like, I find that obviously it's a very difficult thing to do.
Oh yeah, and you know, you're really spot on there, Rachel. And I think for me, it's interesting because my parents, although they probably don't realize it, they were always a little bit alternative. Like, I know my parents were doing like TM, you know, transcendental meditation type stuff in the kind of early 70s and stuff like that. And so I think, and my parents both come from the UK. My mum's Scottish and my dad's English. And I just felt like I was born in Australia, but all my cousins and stuff were born in the UK. But I just felt like there was just a different kind of mindset around some things than what a lot of the other people that I was with seemed to have. And I don't know if it was a different kind of way that I was exposed to thinking about socially, or like how you relate to different people. And by all means, my parents had a lot of their own stuff going on as well.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's almost like I always felt like I was a little bit different anyway. So I was kind of prepared to look at different ways of, you know, thinking about things.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think the big thing other than that was that there was just too much pain to stay where I was.
Yeah.
That was the thing. I think, you know, for people where you feel like, well, everything's okay, you know, like my relationship's okay, my kids are okay, my work's okay. It might not be amazing, but if it's all kind of okay, often people don't really have a lot of motivation to change.
Yeah.
And it's not usually till things get pretty bad that you
Yeah.
go, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
And
There's some kind of catalyst, isn't there?
yeah.
All right. Now, before we get too far ahead, because this is like, I'm loving this conversation already. The question on everyone's lips, I'm sure, who's listening to this podcast is, what is NLP?
What is NLP? Yeah, great question. And so NLP stands for neuro-linguistic programming. And it sounds very kind of technical, but essentially neuro is the mind and the nervous system. Linguistics is our language, the communication that we use, both verbal and nonverbal. And then programming is essentially, we all run on programs. So there's programs that we have that we automatically do the things that we do to consistently get the results that we have. And NLP essentially is a set of techniques that were created in the early 70s by a couple of guys, Richard Bandler and John Grinder. One was a computer technician, something or other, and what was the other guy? The other guy was in social sciences, I think. But anyway, they started looking at, where do people get really good results? You know, where do people get really good results in communication, in growth, in change, in understanding, you know, the human mind and behavior? And so they essentially got very good at looking at what are really good results, and then breaking down how do those results come about. And so essentially what NLP, the thing about NLP is that the only thing in NLP that comes from NLP is what we call modeling, which is that process. It's looking at, okay, who's got excellent results? How do we break down how they're doing that so that we can recreate those results in ourselves? So they looked at, so a lot of their work looked at hypnosis. And, you know, for example, the term rapport was always known in hypnosis, that the hypnotist would get in rapport with their clients and there would be this kind of responsive state that they were in, but no one really knew how they actually did it. So these guys were like, well, to get in rapport, it's a process of matching and mirroring. So if you match and mirror physiology, tonality, those kinds of things, suddenly you'll get in rapport, because people who are like each other, right? That's the basis of rapport. So, that's just a very simple example, but then, there's all different kind of aspects. There was a family therapist, Virginia Satir, who was very good at getting specific with language and asking questions. They modeled that. Milton Erickson was a hypnotherapist. He was very good at using very abstract language to get results. They modeled that. They even looked at, Ivan Pavlov, who was, doing the work with dogs and stimulus response, which became anchoring. How do you create certain states, emotional states within a person in an instant? All these different areas. And it essentially creates this set of tools and techniques that when you learn it, you deeply understand your own mind and your own thoughts and your emotions, and you have the ability to create change around those. So essentially NLP is used in so many different kind of contexts, because it's all about the structure of communication and behavior. It's not about the content. So it's used in business, it's used in health, it's used in education, it's used in personal development, sales, all these kinds of things. Wherever there is human communication and behavior, essentially NLP is really useful.
Kind of speechless. I've got some questions following on from that. Okay. This just doesn't seem like a very common career pathway to me. So how did you discover NLP, and why do you love it so much?
Yeah, and you're so right, Rachel. It's not very common. And in fact, I often say to people that when I was, when I was going to school, like, I never thought, oh my God, one day I want to be an NLP practitioner. I never even heard of it. I thought I wanted to work in a bank. I think I just wanted to count money all day. And I did that. I worked in a bank for about 10 years and went into accounting and all those kinds of things. But I come across NLP because, I was at that point in my life where I'm like, I'm a bit of a hot mess. Nothing's going how I really want it to. I didn't know where to go in my career. So I'd studied accounting. I was working in a pretty sweet job, actually, in a function centre, the National Wine Centre here in Adelaide. And I had a pretty sweet job. We used to get lots of benefits. There was lots of free wine and cheese and stuff, and long lunches and all kinds of really cool things. And it was a really nice place to work, great people. But I just got to that point where I was like, is this all there is? And I'm like, what else do I want to do? And I didn't want to study accounting more. I didn't want to be in an accounting firm just doing books. And I thought about HR, and I thought, well, I don't really like the HR lady that we've got here, so maybe that's something I want to do. At that time, one of my friends had started up this online business, and this was in 2015, late 2014, early 2015, I think it was. And she'd set up this website, and she was doing this stuff, and I was like, man, and I had known this, she's still a good friend of mine. I've been friends with her since school. We've been in each other's weddings and everything. And so I was like checking out what she was doing, and she got into this thing called affiliate marketing, right? Yeah. And so before I knew it, I was in this funnel, watching all these webinars with these guys, from the UK and the US, telling us all about how you can just bang away on your computer and sell other people's stuff and just make squillions of dollars and travel the world, and you'll be nice and fit, and your life will be amazing, right? And I thought that sounds like, the ideal career path for me. So I dumped thousands of dollars into this whole program that I really I couldn't afford. I was a single mom, working part-time. I was borrowing money against the unit that I owned at that time. Well, I had a loan on it. And I dumped all this money into this thing with all these high hopes, and pretty soon found that I made $0, like zilch, nothing. And I was like, oh, this is terrible, like
devastating.
Yeah. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And, there was a couple of really good things, though, that come out of that time. And that was that, number one, these guys knew that the people who got results did a lot of personal development. So I was exposed to a lot of personal development type things there. And the second really good thing was that I met my first coach. And so my first coach really helped me to start thinking about, myself and my life and what I wanted to achieve in a really different way. And she actually introduced me to NLP, and she was a big fan of Tony Robbins.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, okay, this is really cool. And so I went off to Sydney to unleash the power within, to see Tony in Sydney by myself, headed over there. And it was incredible. Like, I don't know if you've ever been to one of Tony Robbins' events, but it's a bit like a personal development rock concert, right?
Yeah, I've seen clips of videos, and I have friends who have attended. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's amazing. Like, he's an incredible man. He's got an incredible story. And like, definitely, it's very high energy. There's a lot of, state shifting, jumping up and down, getting a high, energized state and stuff like that. And on the last day, we did this thing that was like, it was all around health, and they set this challenge about having no coffee, no sugar, no meat, no dairy, no life.
I can handle all those except for coffee.
Yeah. Well, now I'm a bit the same, right? But yeah, I've still got coffee as well. But at that time, like, me not drinking for 2 weeks wasn't really heard of. Apart from when I'd had Jasmine, and like sugar and all that kind of stuff. I was like, I would eat muffins and chocolate and all kinds of stuff, junk food. But I stuck to this thing for like more than 2 weeks. I went for like 3 weeks or 4 weeks or something like that. And I went, wow, like, something really happened there, like, but then of course the conference high wears off and you're back in your own environment. And I started going back to my own ways. And I thought, well, look, that was good, but I really need to learn these skills for myself so that I can consistently create this kind of change for myself. So that was it. And I went and started looking for NLP trainings, and I found one, which was funny because this person was operating this training from this like remote regional little country town that I used to go on holidays at Christmas and Easter to. And I'm like, how is anyone even doing a training there? It's not even a real place. Like, it's just like this little tiny little place. But yeah, she was. And so I went over there and did this training, and I was the crying girl. Like, I literally just cried the whole training. Like, it was like an exorcism of stuff coming out of me. Like, I was primed, I was ready. I'm like, this is going to change my life.
Yes.
And it really did. And then I just was like, oh my God, if I can create this kind of change for myself and shift this old crap that I've been carrying around, I need to be able to help other people do that. And to be honest, people would always told me their problems anyway. Like, I would always find people would just tell me about all their stuff, and I was always drawn into that kind of wanting to help people. But anyway, that started that, and then that next 12 months, I was just all in. So I did the 7-day prac training in February. I went over to Sydney then and did like a 2-week master practitioner training in the May. I went back to Sydney in the October for like 4 weeks and did all NLP trainers training and hypnosis trainers training. And then by the December, I delivered my first 7-day NLP practitioner training from the lounge room of my home, which was now a rented home because I ended up selling my unit to pay for all of the stuff that I was doing. I was that far in. I was just like, I'm just going all in. And I started training. So that was the end of 2016 when I started teaching. And I'm not going to say it was all smooth sailing from there. There was a lot of scary things that happened and ups and downs and whatever else. But I did end up buying another home and an investment property and, paid off all my debts and all that kind of stuff in between. But it was a big, big journey to get to that point.
Yeah. And again, I'm speechless. That is amazing that within a year you had facilitated this change in your life, and then you were helping others to do the same. And that's so inspiring.
Yeah, it was really full on. And That was probably just the start of the shifts for me. From that point, then it was the business journey. And that's when the next level of stuff around money and business and being visible and who am I and, all those kinds of things. Because I remember when I did I can't remember which training it was, but somewhere through that year after one of the trainings, one of my really close friends that I used to go out partying with all the time said to me, like, so what are you going to be, like a life coach or something? Like, it was kind of a joke because like who was I to be life coaching?
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
And but it just always stuck with me. But like now, it's kind of regular every day that people say to me, Toni, thank you so much, you've helped me change my life. Or they tell me about the clients that they're working and how they've helped change their lives. And it's just the most rewarding, purpose-driven thing I've ever done. Like I sometimes I have to pinch myself to go, like, literally the things that I've pushed myself to do means that people that I will never even meet will have had their life changed. And that's it's just incredible. Like, it's not something that I could have ever thought was possible to do and get paid well for doing it.
Yeah. Right? And it's that butterfly effect, isn't it, of impact that you don't even see sometimes happening, and you might not know even for years later the stories that come. I don't know about you, but I find like I have people come back to me with stories a couple of years later after just like doing one of my courses or like even just working together and at surface level, like I just help people brand their business.
Yeah.
But you don't know what else is going on that you're having an impact on in their life. Yeah. And that's like coming back full circle and hearing this. And imagine all the things that you don't hear about. And for you, as someone who's actually intentionally facilitating that as a coach, like that's what you do. I just kind of blows my mind the impact that you must be having. And all it took is that one decision, like that one first step. And you say, all the comments that you get, like that can bring up imposter syndrome and all those sorts of things. But for you to just, yeah, I get all that, but I'm still taking this step, the impact that you're, the legacy that you're leaving behind is just so amazing. So congratulations.
Thank you, Rachel. Like, one of the things that I say to people, because, like I'm teaching people how to coach, I'm certifying them as practitioners, things. And, one of the things that comes up is like, who am I to help somebody, right?
Yeah.
And I always say, who are you not to help somebody? Because if you allow your own doubts hold you back, you're literally going to like prevent, well, maybe not completely prevent, maybe they'll find their own way, but you could stop someone from getting the help that they need.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I love what you're saying as well about, even as being working with people in their brand. I was talking to a lady recently, one of my clients who she loves fashion and she's got young children, and she likes to spend time with her children. And she was sort of saying, well, I don't really know what my purpose is. And this is the thing, right? It doesn't matter what it is you're doing. There's always a purpose to what you're doing. You've just got to think up a little bit higher level. Like, so for this lady, it's like, well, looking after kids is not just about looking after kids, right? Ultimately, what's the highest purpose, what the purpose of that, or the highest intention is that you're going to raise, full grown humans and adults that go out and have a positive impact on the world. Like she was into fashion, and I'm like, ultimately, what's important to you about fashion? Why, what's the purpose of that? She's like, well, because people, it's like helps people feel good about themselves and how they present themselves to the world and how they express themselves, and that has a big impact, right? Because it all comes to how people show up, how they relate to others. Like, that's important, and it's like you're saying with the brand, you say, well, ultimately, what is the purpose of that? It's not just about people having pretty colors on their website. It affects how they show up. It affects how people relate to them, and I'm sure you could say a whole lot more about that. But
you're absolutely right. And it's, and I agree. I think that there's too much it's too much belittling of ourselves. You know, like we tend to sort of just dim our lights and, you know, the actual impact that we do. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah. It's a real tall poppy thing, kind of.
Yeah, the tall poppy thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, don't stand out too much because, you know, someone's going to try to cut you down. So I'll just cut myself down first.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just rife in society. Like I see it happening in my kids and I'm like, don't you dare stop shining. Stop it. You get out there and you shine. Anyway, so I think you mentioned just before, I think you might have tapped a little nerve here when you mentioned the fear of visibility. And we've sort of talked about it a little bit, but I really like to focus in on this topic because, hey, there's nothing like shining a light on our vulnerabilities. But how does this fear of visibility show up, particularly for female business owners? Because that's our audience here. How can that manifest for them?
Yeah, it's a big one. And, you know, I love talking about vulnerabilities. I think this, like, you know, the job that I get to do, I think it's the one job in the world that it's actually a real benefit for me to tell everyone all of the crap that where I've been and what I struggled with and I overcome, right? But, you know, I see this a lot, especially in female business owners, this kind of fear of visibility, and it can come, there's usually some really deep stuff underneath it, right? So, you know, whether you believe that you had a great childhood or you know that there was some stuff that happened that wasn't so great. I mean, like, I know for me, like, I wasn't abused or anything like that, but both my parents, you know, married and divorced about 3-4 times each. There was always a lot of instability, you know, a lot of crazy kind of stuff going on. And when you're a young child, you don't have the ability to process things that are said or things that are happened. And when you're really young, you tend to make everything mean something about you, right? So, you know, this is usually the root of it all. And I mean, it can even be things like, you know, being told that, you know, kids should be seen and not heard, or just be quiet and sit down, or, you know, all these kinds of things where it might just be your parent was just, you know, stressed at the time or focusing on something else or had something important to do. But as a child, we'll make it mean, oh, it's not okay for me to be heard, or it's not okay for me to be seen, or, you know, it could be that there is some actual trauma that's happened where people have found that they want to try to hide and keep small and not be seen because it keeps them out of danger. Right. So there might have been some physical abuse or sexual abuse or, you know, emotional abuse, all kinds of things that could happen that get buried, right? Because your unconscious mind will, out of necessity, like repress things that you haven't been able to process. And it's really interesting. There's a guy called Gabor Mate who does a lot of work. He had a book or a movie called The Wisdom of Trauma. And he's worked a lot with people with like drug addictions and all kinds of things. And he said, you know, the key thing to how people deal with trauma isn't necessarily the extent of how bad it necessarily was at the time, but more so whether you have the ability to talk about it or process it or release it at that time. So kids are pretty resilient, but if they don't have the opportunity to talk about it, express how they feel and process it, they can internalize a lot of stuff, right? So then even when you then become an adult and you consciously know that you're okay or you're safe or whatever else, there's this memory that's repressed in your unconscious mind, which is in your body. That's the domain in unconscious mind that still sits there with a perspective of a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old or a 6-year-old. So it doesn't have the logic and the wisdom and the understanding that you do as an adult. Okay, so you filter experiences through this thinking that's trapped in there as a very small child. So it can be very irrational and it can be very kind of fear-based and those kinds of things. But, you know, typically how I see this show up for people is that, you know, they've got a dreaded fear of doing video or, you know, they don't have their face on any of their socials. They've only got logos on there. You know, they hesitate about writing any content or putting any content out for fear of like judgment or criticism, or being told that they're wrong, or that, it's not good enough, all these kinds of things. And, like I said, behind this stuff, it can be these deep-seated fears. Like I had a fear of being publicly shamed. That was the thing. Like if I put myself out there, somebody else might attack me, and everyone else would believe them. Right. Like, and so if you've got something like that, you might not be consciously aware of it, but you'll procrastinate, right?
Yeah.
You won't get the thing done. You'll find some other thing to do. You'll make up some kind of reason about why that's not the thing that you should do right now. It's not quite ready. All these kinds of things that can show up, which is just driven by these unconscious kind of fears.
So fascinating, because it's like, obviously we all have some kind of childhood trauma, whether we had, even if we had a lovely childhood. You're right. Like the mum who's just had enough and she's exhausted and she snaps at the kid. Like that's all it can take, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, like I've got friends who, are running businesses, and I've got small children and stuff like that. And I know, like, it's a real fear. And I had this as well. Like my daughter's now 20 and just, moved to Queensland, which I'm at a different stage of life. But I can remember the fears that I had that I would damage, my daughter, not physically, obviously. But, like mentally and emotionally, and especially when I went through, separation, I divorced her dad, and, different things that happened in my life. It was always this real fear that I was going to somehow damage her. And I know it's really common. I hear this with other, mums as well. But I think it's always remembering that even if you have snapped, even if something has happened, that you just need to go and talk to your children and explain, like how you were feeling, and explain emotions, and explain that you're sorry if they, that they didn't, if they felt bad, it wasn't, they haven't done anything wrong, or ask them how they are feeling, or whatever it is. It's just to help them process that for themselves, so that they don't get stuck with whatever representation they took from it at the time.
Yeah, 100%. And it's not an easy thing to do necessarily. To slow down and do that. But I love that, we're living in an age now where I feel like that's starting to become more of a normal thing. When we grew up, it was sort of like the parents they were always right. And even if they snapped, it was like, well, you did the wrong thing. Exactly. You deserved it. And to be able to start flipping that on its head, I feel, it's like so important. And like I'm trying. I know that a lot of parents that I'm in circles with are trying as well. And hopefully like we can sort of, raise up a new generation of women, particularly for me, my case.
Absolutely. But, I think the one thing that I remember hearing, and I know we've gone a little bit off probably tangent here, but the one thing I remember hearing that helped me so much as a parent was, and it's a little bit woo-woo, but I love a bit of woo-woo, was that our children, like we choose our parents, and our children choose us. So, we choose to come through this life for whatever it has to teach us, and then situations and relationships and everything that we will have, and really that life is always happening for you, not to you. So, and this is the basis of all the work that I do with people, like with timeline therapy and NLP, is that when you find the meaning, like the positive meaning to whatever it is that you've experienced in the past, and you get the positive learning lessons from it, the trauma and the emotions like disappear. They simply go. And so it's always like whatever's happening is like, okay. And it's the same in business, right? It's like if you're feeling like you're stuck on something, or you're feeling fear, it's just, okay, well, there's a purpose to this. Like, what do I need to learn?
And do you find that as you practice that over time, when you're in tricky situations or something didn't work out how you expected it to, because that happens in business more frequently than we would like. Do you find that the more you practice that, the better you get at it, and more quickly you recover?
I think, I remember once, because, like I said, I mean, I'm a Pisces as well, so maybe I was just a very sensitive child as well. But I remember, talking to my coach once, like crying, I should say, crying to my coach once, going, "Oh my God, am I ever going to get rid of all my stuff?" Right?
Yeah.
Because I just felt like every time I spoke to her, I was just like, "Oh, and then there's this and this and this," right? But, the thing that we do find, and it happens in business, there's been times when people have said to me, "Yes, I'm doing your course," and I send them an invoice and then they pull out.
Yeah.
Or I say, "I'm going to be doing, running a training," and then for whatever reason, I haven't promoted it enough, haven't done whatever else enough, and then I've had to cancel it. There's been all of these things that have happened. I've run the first 5-day challenge I ran. Everybody loved it, but my offer was shit and nobody bought anything from me, right? These things happen.
Yeah.
I think part of that in business is you do just have to, you do just learn that whatever happens, this is not the last thing I'm ever going to do.
Yeah.
It's just this thing that's happened, and there's something here for me to learn about that. And it's the same with your own personal growth, right? And every level you go to in business, you'll find you can find even with visibility, right? You might clear what you're happy with going visible in your own personal group, and you're happy doing that. And then you start going, well, I want to do some stuff in somebody else's group or more publicly. And then there can be a cap around that. So there'll be something else to kind of, move through in there. But, what you do find, especially with personal growth, is no matter how bad you feel at any given time, is that you're not stuck with it, and there is a way that you can move through that and resolve it. And on the other side, you'll be like, woohoo, this is the best thing in the world, right? I'm loving it.
Yeah.
And this too shall pass. And there'll be another time where you're like, oh my God, am I ever going to get this right?
Yeah.
And that's the growth. And I'm still doing it, Rachel. There's I do some pretty high level kind of personal evolution stuff now with the mentors and things that I have, and because I know the more that I grow as a person, the more I become who I truly am and can be fully self-expressed, the further I can take other people. I know that for sure. And it's one of the reasons probably why so many of my clients just keep doing things with me and staying with me, because I'm forever growing and evolving and sharing that journey. And I think, you just have to decide that you're okay with that. Sometimes you're going to think this is amazing and it's the most incredible thing you've ever done. And other times you're going to be thinking, oh my God, could I go and clean toilets?
Yes.
Wouldn't that be easier?
That is so funny that you said that, because literally I have this beautiful mastermind group called the Kindred Collective, and we have this Voxer chat, and most days all the ladies are in the Voxer chat, and the topic of conversation yesterday was the temptation to look at jobs on Seek.
Yeah.
And the contrast that can bring up. So it's interesting that you said that even though something may seem easier, are you actually going to be happy doing that?
No. Yeah. It is, and I think that's the thing. It's once you've fired up that entrepreneurial mindset, it's very hard to go back. It's kind of if you get some pair of pants and like stretchy pants and then they've been overstretched, they never go back to how they should be. Right? That's what I kind of think about every time. If I think about myself going back into a job, I'm like, oh no, that is way worse. And then I kind of think about all of the positives that I get for the work that I do. I literally go, I could not go back to a job that doesn't have the kind of meaning that what I get from what I do now. And again, it comes back to that thing, who am I not to push through for the people that I can help?
Yes, I love that. It's so empowering and so inspiring. So I think on that note, I think it's a good opportunity to I guess wind things up. So finally, what would you say to the lady or the business owner who has never showed their face online to represent their business, or is scared to go to networking events, or even join in a Zoom session? what would your advice be to her, or what would you like to say to her?
Yeah, you know what? The thing that you just have to know for yourself is that, number one, nobody's really thinking about you as much as what you think they are, right? Everybody is caught up in their own stuff about themselves, right? That's a fact.
Yeah.
And you know, and I know this for certainty that everyone has stuff, because I work with people from all kinds of work. I've got business owners that are doing multi-millions in their business who I work with that don't have everything sorted out, right? So everyone's got their own stuff. Number two, no one who's above you is ever going to judge you or put you down or anything else, right? Anyone who's further ahead than you are going to encourage you and really support you, and they want you to do really well. You know, number three, people will, like, this is the thing, is like, I was talking about rapport earlier, right? And people are attracted to people not because that they're perfect, but because they can relate to them, right? Because there's similarities. So however it is that your hair is, your face is, how you talk, what your voice sounds like, you know, what you wear, any of that stuff, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's you do you and how you feel good. And there's going to be people who are attracted to you because they feel comfortable about how you are. You know, there's no perfect way. And so, and when you do that, like, you just show up as you and how you like to be, then the people who are attracted to you are the people that you like as well, and that you want to work with. So, you know, that is the big thing. Is like, when you can really understand that at a deep level, that you need to provide the people the opportunity who are going to feel so comfortable working with you, the opportunity to see you and to get to know you and hear you. And anybody else that's not okay with how you are, they're not your people anyway. So don't even worry about them.
Yeah, and most likely they're not even going to pay any attention anyway.
Yeah, they won't be paying any attention. Exactly.
They'll be off in their little flock. I love that. Thank you so much. I love how you break things down so clearly, and they make so much sense. And, you know, unraveling the mess that can be, you know, our own prison sometimes. So thank you so much, Toni. I just have a couple of rapid fire fun questions to wrap up. So I'm just going to ask what your favorite is, and then I'm going to say a word, and it's just whatever pops into front of mind.
Okay, good.
Okay, so what's your favorite app?
My favorite app, I have to say, if it goes by the amount of time that I spend on it, it would have to be Facebook, or closely followed by TikTok. That's pretty sad, isn't it?
No, I think it's just the world we live in, really. We all need some kind of pleasure to wind down with. It's fine. I'm glad you're honest. Favorite time of day?
Favorite time of the day? I love mornings. I really love mornings. I don't need an alarm. I will just naturally wake up at like 5 o'clock or something, and I do meditations, and like I do journaling, and now that the weather's nice, I'd go for a nice big walk. I like walking through a cemetery. It's really weird, but I live near the Enfield Cemetery, and it's the most beautiful, peaceful place. I love walking through there. So yeah, mornings are my favorite time of day.
Oh, that's beautiful. Do you know, I like walking through cemeteries as well. I don't think it's quite, my children think it's really odd that I find cemeteries a really peaceful place.
Yeah, it is.
Really
it's
glad
so
that you said
peaceful.
that.
I love it. Yeah.
Okay. Favorite time of not time of day, exercise. Favorite exercise.
Favorite exercise, like yoga. So I walk, I do yoga, and I do weights. I do weights because I like the results. I do yoga because I like it, and I walk because it's easy.
Favorite habit or ritual?
My favorite habit or ritual, I think it's my daily meditations. I did it this end of last year. I went to this high-end kind of personal evolution 7-day thing, which had been on my bucket list. It was quite expensive. It had been on my bucket list for like years.
Amazing.
And I went all in and I went to it, and that was November last year, and I'm still doing meditations, a lot of energy stuff, archetypes to do with like the tarot, all kinds of stuff. And so, you know, diving into that and those meditations. And this year I'm going to another version of it in November, which is all about numerology and astrology. Because I've got my chart and I know a little bit about it, but I'm going to go to the level where I can help other people with their charts as well. So I'm pretty excited about that.
How you do that? Just go straight to how you can help others with it as well. I love it. Okay. Favorite way to relax?
Favorite way to relax? I really love the beach. I absolutely love the beach. I love being around water. Do you know what I love the most? I love swimming underwater. Like, there's something about swimming underwater. Like, as soon as we go to the beach, I'm the person doing like underwater somersaults and handstands and just like being underwater.
Yeah,
I love it.
beautiful.
It's just peaceful and yeah.
Another world you can just escape to.
Yeah.
All right. Finally, last one. What's your favorite thing about your business?
My favorite thing about my business is definitely the people that I meet and that I get to work with, and just like hearing how they all want to help other people, you know, that the work that they do and how I like just hearing, like helping them evolve and just hearing, you know, the on-flow effect of that stuff. I love that. I just, yeah, it's worth doing all the other stuff that I don't want to do in my
Yes. Yes, I feel you. All right, lovely. I just so grateful for your time today. Thank you so much. I know that there are probably 1,000 billion other topics that you could share your wisdom on, and you have your very own podcast now.
Yes.
So if any of our listeners want to come and find you, where's the best place to go?
Look, you'll find me pretty easily as Toni Everard anywhere. Toni Everard Coaching. My website, you know, tonieverard.com.au, socials, all that kind of stuff. But if you want to check out the podcast, it's the Coaching Circle. You can check that out on all the platforms. And I'm looking forward to having you on there as a guest as well, Rachel. We'll be able to have another different kind of conversation.
Yes, another deep, meaningful chat, hopefully. But I'm looking forward to that as well. Thanks so much, Toni.
Thank you, Rachel. It's been such a pleasure. I really appreciate it. Keep doing such awesome work.
If you found this episode inspiring or helpful, I invite you to share the link with another woman in business or someone who needs to hear this message. Every woman we can support to grow a meaningful, profitable brand is another woman who is free to live a purposeful life for herself and be more present for her family. None of us are alone in the challenges we face in business, but the solution can start with a gift from someone else, and it could be a podcast episode just like this one. Thank you for listening.